Welcome to the Old Cow Report. Of course, I'm your host, Chuck Lee, and I'm coming to you live from the beautiful downtown parking lot and arena, formerly known as Banbury Place, and we're coming to you live from that beautiful studio. And tonight we have, as usual, a lot to talk about. Boy, oh boy. We're right here again live, and of course we're going to be taking phone calls here in a minute. But as usual, I've got a lot to talk about. As you know out there, there's been many things that have been happening in the local area, including the big upcoming school referendum that's just about, let's see, April, May, about March, about a little under 2 months left now before that big referendum comes up, and that's a $47 million boondoggle out there, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, guess who gets to foot the bill for the tax and spend liberals down here at the school board? You do, ladies and gentlemen, the taxpayer. And it's going to come out of your real estate for many, many years to come. Now, when this was first introduced back a few months ago, after the last one failed, then they reformulated and came out with this new one, which is $43.1 million. They assumed that the state was going to pick up the majority of the cost of this, but unfortunately, we're finding out now that the state is only going to pick up 5.9% of the cost of this upcoming school referendum, which means that the bulk of that, 94% of that, is going to be paid by you, the taxpayer. And of course, you know, when you say, yeah, Madison's going to pick up 5.9%, well, Madison gets their tax dollars from the people all over the state. So even in that case, the taxpayers are going to foot the whole 100% of it, but 94% of it is going to fall on the local taxpayers. And you have to question, do we really need this big referendum, $43 million, with declining enrollment? One of the reasons the last referendum failed was because there was a little bit of deception on the part of the school board and the school administration as to the need for building of more buildings, more schools for the Eau Claire area. And as you recall, the Leader-Telegram had photographs on the front page of crowded classrooms, crowded corridors, and they even showed a gymnasium packed almost to the ceiling with little kids down there at Boyd School saying that it was overcrowded there. But in reality, the enrollment had been declining and was declining at that very time when they were trying to tell us that they needed all these school buildings because of overpopulation in the school system. The actual figures were saying totally the opposite, that there was a decline in the enrollment at that time, and that enrollment is continuing to decline. And because of that and other factors, the building of new schools are not required or needed. What they need to do is consolidate like other school districts have over the years, and sometimes they even consolidate mass consolidations, like down in Illinois, the superintendent of schools all consolidated down to, I think it was something like 57 large school districts, which were regional school districts, where individual school districts consolidated together, got rid of a lot of the duplication, and got rid of some of the superintendents and had a regional superintendent of schools that was over a larger area. But when you're looking just at the Eau Claire School District, we're in a declining enrollment, so we need to start consolidating schools, probably eliminating some of the principal jobs, some of the other jobs that are duplicated now, and start getting real in the Eau Claire area and start spending the taxpayers' money wisely. A part of this is for building of schools, but another part is a technology part, and that's the purchasing and then maintaining of computers, computer systems, people that are able to work on those computers, the wiring and all those things that go along with that. And I think that's something roughly around $8 million for that part of it. I say roughly because I don't have the exact figure here, broken down out of the $43 million total figure. But if anyone has purchased computers, they know that as soon as you get them home, they start becoming obsolete very, very quickly. And that's exactly what's going to happen to millions of dollars worth of equipment that they purchase. And so they possibly should start thinking about more hands-on education. And yes, maybe some of the computer systems need upgrading, but we don't need to go to a totally computerized training or school system. If we do, then possibly we should get rid of 50% of the teachers and go to 50% computers, start doing some teaching where you could take a studio like this and you could teach 500 people at once. And you could do it over the computer system, over closed-circuit TV. So there are many ways where you can actually reduce the cost of teaching, and they're basically saying that we need the computers to reduce the cost and to keep up with technology. But in the computer technology and the modems and the hard drives and the monitors and the software and the hardware that goes along with it, it very rapidly becomes obsolete, and you have to continue to upgrade. And that's going to cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to continually upgrade. So I don't think we should throw all of our chips into the computer age and computer technology to teach when we have all of these high-priced teachers that only work 9 months out of the year. Maybe we should just rely more on teaching human teachers. Okay, so we'll be taking calls on that, 839-6261, if anyone wants to call in on the situation with the referendum. But when it came out that only 5.9% was going to be paid for out of Madison, and 94% was going to be paid by you, the local taxpayers in the Eau Claire School District, I think that pretty much sealed the fate of this referendum. And it probably will go down to a resounding defeat, just like the one in Bloomer just collapsed here about a week ago. This one will probably collapse upon itself now because it's ill-conceived. And really, they are not telling us all the facts and figures. And I personally feel, as an editorial on this program, that the last referendum, there was a little bit of deception there as to how much money was actually needed and what the money was going to go for. And I think that we were deceived as taxpayers in this area, and enough people saw through it that it was soundly defeated. And I think this one is going to be soundly defeated too. They need to come back with a realistic plan that takes into effect the continued declining enrollment in the Eau Claire area of students. And there's been such a decline in enrollment that they could actually close down a couple of the elementary schools right now, the older ones, and consolidate them and just use a little more busing to get the same effect. Some of those older schools possibly need to retire, but we don't need to build new monoliths and put names on them of local heroes just to be building buildings. You know, the economy is rosy now, but anyone that's lived in Wisconsin knows that it's an up-and-down economy. And next year we could be in a recession or depression, but you're still going to be stuck with footing the bill on these buildings. So if anyone wants to call in on that area, we'll be receiving calls, or if anything that you'd like to call in upon tonight, we'll be accepting calls on any issue, local, national, or international, that you would like to talk about. Another interesting thing that's coming up this Friday, got an invitation here, the annual Lincoln Day dinner. Abraham Lincoln's celebration here in the local area includes an annual Lincoln Day dinner. This one is being held Friday, February 26th at the Ramada Inn Crystal Ballroom, 1202 West Claremont Avenue, Eau Claire. And that starts around 6:30 with a social hour, dinner at 7:15, and then at 8 p.m., Congressman Mark Newman will be sharing his vision for the 21st century, and then there'll be a social hour following that. The cost is $20 per person, and if you want more information on that, you can call 832-1282, and I think if you would still want to call in tonight or tomorrow morning, you still might be able to get put in your reservation for that meal. And that is, you need not be a member of the Republican Party to attend. Of course, Abraham Lincoln, I think, was the first elected Republican in this country, but he represented more than just the Republican Party during the Civil War and right immediately following the Civil War. So if you'd like to celebrate the annual Lincoln Day dinner with fellow people that believed in Abraham Lincoln and also would like to hear a good speaker, you'll be entertained by Congressman Mark Newman. Once again, that's 832-1282 or 839-7885 if you'd like to attend that event. But I think they're almost to the deadline as far as getting in your reservations for that meal. So make sure you call right away. Okay, so we will get past that there, and Roy will be letting me know about things of that nature. All right. Okay, there's a study that just came out that was commissioned by Inside Edition. It's a syndicated news show that's seen in, I think, in this area in the evening and other areas around the country. Study detailing the risque conduct on cable television wrestling. And it's a popular 2-hour wrestling show on cable television, averages over only 36 minutes of actual wrestling, leaving plenty of time for crotch grabbing, obscene gestures, and simulated sexual activity, according to a recent study. A detailed Indiana University study of 50 WWF Raw episodes last year on the USA Network turned up a staggering amount of profane and risque incidents. For instance, researchers counted 1,658 instances of a character grabbing or pointing to their own crotch, or roughly 8 every half hour, not counting slow motion instant replays. And this Walter Gantz, professor at Indiana Department of Telecommunications, said, "I can see where an adult would be very concerned with the frequency at which these behaviors were aired." And I hear some music out there in the hallway, and Roy, I don't know what's going on, but it seems to be some commotion out there in the hallway, and somebody is making their way into the studio here.
Oh, Chuck, how you doing?
Well, if it ain't my old friend, California, Johnny the Man Ringo. Glad to see you.
Yes, Chuck, I'm back.
Where in the heck you been for the last 3 years?
Well, Chuck, I've been out doing some time at my home in Beverly Hills. Sitting back there watching the Cow Report when I have my spare time. How you been?
Pretty good. It looks like you're still wrestling.
Oh, yes. Have you seen Chuck down there in Tijuana a few years back? Intercontinental Pac 11 World Wrestling Champion beat Julio Iglesias down there in Tijuana in a death match.
Well, I know you won that championship here about 3 years ago, and then you disappeared with the belt.
That's right.
What happened?
Took some time off, Chuck. Needed to take back, look at a few things, you know. After beating all those midgets up there in Bulgaria, had no competition left, but I've been sitting back there in my home in Beverly Hills. I see a big mouth here in Eau Claire shooting off his mouth about you, Chuck. A guy by the name of the Common Man.
Yeah, he's that little guy about 5'3".
Yeah, what's his deal? Bad mouthing you, the best show on public access, the Cow Report.
Ever since you left town, he's been mouthing off.
I see that, and it's just irritating me, Common Man. I want you to put your money where your mouth is. I'm challenging you to the steel cage death match for the Intercontinental Pac 11 World Wrestling Championship. Come on, Common, accept the challenge. You're bad-mouthing my friend Chuck, and I'm not going to take it anymore. The Cow Report, the best show on television, and that show you've been watching, I've been watching out there in Beverly Hills, Chuck. It's irritating. It's nothing like the great piece of art you got going here.
Well, we thank you. And you know, it is rough back here in the Midwest when you have to deal with people like that. And they mouth off a lot, but you know, let's see if the Common Man will take you up on that challenge. And you know, I think we have a wrestling promoter right here in town that'll write up the contract.
One of those great Ghanaians. I trained under him, Chuck. Learned a lot about that. Let's bring it on, Common. Accept the challenge. I'll take you on any time, any place. Let's see if we can get this going.
Well, I know you had 362 wrestling matches, and then you just disappeared.
Well, you got to take some time off.
You took the belt and left town.
Well, I've been working out there in Beverly Hills with Hollywood Hogan. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah.
Working together on the NWO, and now I'm back in Eau Claire, restaking my claim, and want to make sure the Common can put his money where his mouth is and accept the challenge here for the Intercontinental Pac 11 World Wrestling Championship.
All right, well, the challenge is out there. We'll see if Common's out there in TV land watching, if he wants to call in and get his motor mouth running, and we'll see if he has any words to say about the challenge. And what kind of match is it now?
I'm challenging you if you'll accept steel cage death match to the end. But Common, I know you might be a little afraid. So I'll accept any match under your conditions, your terms. I will accept the challenge.
I know there's some holes you perfected when you're over there in Bulgaria, and I saw a few news clips, but other than that, you totally disappeared, and we didn't know if you were wrestling in Europe or not, but we saw where you were doing those Velcro midget wrestling matches over there, and we couldn't, and we were wondering what the heck's going on over there. You're wrestling 3 midgets at once and picking them up, and when they had Velcro all over them, and you throw them against the wall and they'd stick, and it was 3-on-1. I don't know what was going on there, but it looks like
all down.
It looks like you held the belt through all that.
You know, the one match where 7 midgets against me, they're all in their Velcro jumping up against me, but there's no challenge for the man. I am Johnny the Man Ringo, and it's great to be back, Chuck. I can't tell you how excited I am back here on the Cowery Porch, back in Eau Claire here. It's just a great feeling to be back in town.
Now, will there be any referees in this, or is it just you and Common locked in this iron cage?
Well, I would prefer, I think we could have you as a special guest referee, but I'll accept any challenge, any conditions Common Man wants. I'm leaving it totally up to him. He's the one that's afraid. I'm making this wide open, however he wants to do this, Common. I'll accept any type of conditions you want, anybody you want refereeing. I'll accept the challenge.
All right, well, that'll be a good match to put together, and we have some matchmakers here in town. Jim Gagne has his wrestling association, and I know you were kicked out of Wrestling Association about 10 years ago. You had a falling out with Vern Gagne over there in the city.
We had a little miscommunication there, and Vern Gagne was shooting off his mouth. He does that once in a while, and I took him down. He kicked me out, and Vince McMahon with the WWF kicked me out. Nobody's been able to handle me, so I took some time off, disappeared for a while. But the man, Johnny the Man Ringo, is back. Bigger, badder, better than ever, and accepting, waiting for that challenge from Common. I see that phone's not ringing too fast, Common. Are you a little afraid?
Well, I remember that one match where you wrestled that 353-pound woman, 6'2". I mean, she looked like a bull out there. You had your hands full that night.
It was a tough match. The title was on the line. I thought it could slip away, but we dug deep down inside to the soul, the heart. And we pulled it up, we got her down, we pinned her, we threw her around at the end there like she was a bag of Olestra potato chips. There was no match for Johnny the Man Ringo.
I know, it looked pretty rough there for about the first 35 minutes. That was one of the longest matches in the history of wrestling.
I tell you, I know how Hollywood Hogan felt when he faced Tubby there, Andre the Giant. That was a tough match, one of the great ones. And she was pretty much the dang near size, and it took all I had to pick her up, body slam her to the ground. But after we got all the little Ringoans running around supporting me, it was no problem taking her down.
Okay, I think we got a call coming in here, so we better take a call here. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, how you doing?
All right.
This is Rich Wingo here, and I'm a little agent for this guy here that wants to. Why don't you take this guy out in a little wrestling match?
What guy?
Guy you're talking to right here with the belt.
Well, he's challenging the Common Man. You gonna?
Oh, I got a Common Man for him.
Is it the Common Man?
It's the Common Man. 6'6", about 305 pounds. Solid muscle, baby, coming at you.
All right. Well, we'll see if we can make that match. But right now, Johnny's back in town, and you flew back just for this one match, though, right? You still have your wrestling career. What's going on out there in California now? How's your wrestling career going?
Going pretty well out there. Like I said, we've been working a lot with Hollywood Hogan. Working with him, getting some things set up there. The NWO, some great things going on out there. But like I said, been back there in Beverly Hills in the house, watching the show, seeing Common shooting his mouth off. So I spoke to Miss Nikki, my manager, the former World Heavyweight Champion Intercontinental there. And we got on our jets here. She flew me out here to Eau Claire. And we wanted to end this dispute once and for all. I'm telling you, Chuck, I'm so upset with Common for a bad mouth in your show time and time again. It's so upsetting, and I just couldn't take it anymore. 3 years has been way too long. So we flew back in here, just arrived out there at Eau Claire International Airport a couple hours ago, brought the limo here, and just thought we'd issue the challenge to Common.
Well, you know, are you still using that one eye gouge where you get them in the headlock and gouge out their eyes? Are you still using that play?
Been using that one, but I've been working out there with Hogan. We've got a brand new move that we're going to be unveiling if Common accepts this match. Brand new. It's a guaranteed. I guarantee the match won't last longer than 5 to 10 minutes at the most.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The Intercontinental Pac-11 World Wrestling Champion, Johnny the Man Ringo, is challenging the Common Man, so that's going to be quite a match.
Come on, Common Man.
The Common Man versus Johnny the Man Ringo. No holds barred, death match.
Death match to the end.
in the iron cage, and we'll see if we can pull that together and get a match going and get a contract signed. We'll see if the little wimp has got anything to say out there in television land.
I'll have Miss Nikki stay in contact with you here, Chuck, getting everything set up. It's great to see you again. We'll stay in
Okay.
touch. Come on, Common. Accept the challenge. I'll be waiting.
Show your belt one more time there. I mean, that belt,
Intercontinental.
that belt's been
Pac
around the world.
11, all over the world. The midgets in Bulgaria tried to get it. The big bull, the 350-pound woman, tried to get it. It's staying with Johnny.
Wait a minute, I think we got one more caller. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air. Hello? Did I get the wrong line here? Oh, we lost him there. That's a call
It's
back.
Common. I bet you got a little shaky in the boots and hung up.
Probably shaking dialing the phone there. Probably got nervous. Well, I'll tell you. So you're not going to tell us what your new secret hold is. I know the eye gouger there. Well, that's one of the reasons you got kicked out of that one league.
So it's been declared illegal. I think the new move could be just as controversial, but we'll wait. We'll wait. We're going to unveil it there with a death match with a Common Man, and I guarantee you, Chuck, you're going to be thoroughly impressed with it. It's going to take him down and break every little bone in his body, what's left there is anyway.
Now, what about that one match down there in Mexico, that one that where you wrestled that guy that had hair all over his face? What was that all about?
Well, I tell you, Chuck, at first that was a little scary. I've never seen as much hair in a man as I did back there at the San Diego Zoo with the baboons running around. A little afraid. We got the Bic razor out there. We gave him a clean shave and cleaned him up a little bit and pinned him down, threw him around like a tiny, teeny man that he was. And he was after we got all the hair cleaned up and got him cleaned up and made him looking like a man again. We took him down, and no problem for Johnny Ringo.
Okay, Johnny, well, do you think you can actually take Common? Now, I've heard Common bites, he scratches, he gouges, he kicks.
I know he plays dirty, and he talks dirty, he talks trash, and it could be a challenge. But I know with the guidance of the mentors, Greg Gagne back there, with Miss Nikki in the corner, I don't see any problem taking on Common. I don't see any problem taking him down and taking him out and keeping the Pac-11 World Championship, the Intercontinental title, right here where it belongs.
Okay, I think we got that caller back. And go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, hey, this is Wildman Otis. You don't want to even mess with me.
All right, are you a wrestler?
Oh, I'm more than a wrestler. I'm the real deal. And this little skinny little punk with Tourette's syndrome up here, he ain't shit.
All right, sounds like there's somebody else.
I think somebody broke into Irvine Park there, Common, and Chippewa. Sounds like some of the animals are getting loose.
Sounds like some of Common's underlings there are trying to mouth off a little bit.
Shenanigans again.
Let's see if Common puts his money where his mouth is and shows up for the match. We'll see if we can wrap that up and get a contract going, and we'll have Johnny the Man Ringo versus the Common Man. That ought to be quite a match.
And it's Chuck, I got to get going. The Jets fired up. Wait, we got to get back to Beverly Hills.
I think we got one
Another
more
call. We can stay for one more. Maybe it's Common.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Is that old McDonald's farm? Is that Common shenanigans again? What's going on here? Johnny Ringo doesn't have time for this.
All right, Johnny. Well, we appreciate you coming in again, and glad to see you after 3 years. We didn't know what happened to you. We heard rumors about the Bulgarian wrestling and the 350-pound woman that almost pinned you, and then that kind of that werewolf guy down there in Mexico. And I'll tell you, it looks like you've been around the world. You got the diamond ring on. You still got the belt. And does the diamond ring go with the belt? Is that part of the match?
Actually, the diamond ring came back from Miss Lulu. If you remember her back in the WWF days, the world champion, when she passed the torch on to Miss Nikki when she won the championship. She gave her the diamond ring. Miss Nikki's been the loyal fan in my corner ever since. It's just a symbol of her commitment to the Johnny the Man Ringo and our faith here to take on the world and take on Common and continue to be successful. But the belt is on the line.
All right, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Call in, Common.
Johnny the Man Ringo from Beverly Hills, California, come back to Eau Claire to stake out his claim. Thanks for coming in, Johnny. All right, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Oh, I wanted to speak to the wrestler freak.
Well,
You got him?
you had your chance.
Bring him back. Bring him back, quick.
Come back here, Johnny. There's one guy who wants to talk to you.
We can be just brief. The jet's waiting. We got to get going back there to Beverly Hills. Hope this is a real question. We don't have time. Is this common?
Know your damn role. Yeah, sure you got.
Well, what's the question? He's here.
Well, where is he? Let me see him. I don't see him on the TV.
Roy, you got to bring Johnny the Ringo Man up again.
We don't have time for this. What's going on?
There he is.
Common?
All right, there he is.
Know your damn role. Yeah, you need to shut your mouth and know your damn role, because I'm the most electrifying guy in Eau Claire. You want to wrestle? I'll wrestle you for some dinkity-dink.
Well, first of all, Common's got a...
You look confused there, boy. Yeah, you look a little confused. You know what you're...
Well, because I don't know who the heck we're talking to on the phone. It sounds like a little bunch of fifth graders from Boyd Elementary. We're offering the challenge to Common Man. I want to hear him call. I know Chuck's got a show to do here. We got Miss Nikki and I got to get back to Beverly Hills. And Chuck, we're going to be heading out here again. Once again, it's great to be here. And Common Man calls in. Have your people get in contact with Miss Nikki there.
My people will get in touch with your people out in Beverly Hills.
We'll get the contract signed up and call in, Common.
We'll do lunch. All right. Thanks a lot. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The challenge has been laid out there for the Common Man. Is he a man or a wimp? He's been going by the Common Man all these years. They've been 20, 25 years now spouting off around town. Let's see if he has really got what it takes to take on Johnny the Man Ringo, the Intercontinental Pac-11 World Wrestling Champion, live from Beverly Hills. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, well, that takes care of that. Now, we have some information coming out about the Y2K problem. Of course, if you still want to call in, Common, the show, the lines are open for you. You can call in and go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm a personal friend of Common, and Johnny just better watch breath. He's got a killer breath. I just want to warn him. It'll be a good match, though, so I hope the best man wins.
Who, Common Man's breath?
Oh, yeah, it's killer, so.
Well, he's going to have to show his muscles in there because in a death match in the cage, in that steel cage, there ain't nowhere for Common to run.
Yeah, I know. So.
And he likes to kind of spout off and run and hide, but this time he'll be locked in the cage to the death till the end of the match.
We got to get him in there, and we got to fight to the end. It'll be a good match, I'm sure.
I think it'll fill up any arena in this area.
I think so too. So hopefully we can get him on the phone here.
All right.
All righty, thanks.
Thanks a lot. Okay, well, we're waiting for the Common Man to call in. You know, the Canadian National Guard has already alerted all of their troops to be on standby December 31st, January 1st of this year, going into the year 2000, because of the possible calamities that might happen. They even talking about now in the United States, National Guards all over the country are starting to mobilize and activate for the upcoming crisis that's coming, and we don't know how serious it's going to be or how where there's going to be no problems. But I know I've gotten statements recently in some software I've purchased saying that they can't guarantee that software to be Y2K compatible. The banks are starting to get a little edgy, and matter of fact, I read a statement for one bank saying that they don't know exactly how the Y2K problem will affect some of the local banks. The local power companies are frantically trying to get their computers up to speed, the telephone companies, the banks, anything that has to do with computers. The grocery stores, one of the grocery stores up in Chippewa Falls closed their doors because they said that they wouldn't be able to be Y2K compatible in time for the year 2000. But now there's an article in the Leader-Telegram tonight, Guard getting ready nationwide for the Y2K. It says National Guard units around the country are being trained to deal with phone outages and other chaos that could result from computer crashes when the year 2000 begins. In Washington State, half of the Guard's ground troops will be on duty December 31st and January 1st. Other states plan to have units on standby in case of blackouts, looting, or other problems that might occur if computers shut down because they can't comprehend the date 2000. Well, you know, if we're in Miami, Florida, or in Georgia, or Texas, or Louisiana, we wouldn't have to worry about it. We're in Wisconsin, where in January we see temperatures as low as 20 below zero. And if the electricity shuts down, if the heat shuts down, If they have to shut off the gas mains, or if the computers don't calculate this right and they have to shut off the electricity, we could be in some serious problems up here with the way that the temperatures fluctuate. I mean, during the day we might be able to get up to 5 or 10 above, but we're talking that we could actually have some people freeze to death in their own homes if this extended into 3 or 4 or 5 days. It doesn't take long at 20 below zero to freeze to death. And so this is a serious situation, and you need to start stockpiling certain things, basic things, like a good supply of candles, 10, 20 good candles that are going to last you several days. You need to have say a week's worth of rations on hand. Some food that, the canned goods that you can eat out of a can if you have to. You want to make sure that you're purchasing things that will still be good up into, say, February of the year 2000. You can buy corn and other things, dried fruits and grains, things that are storable. You need to also have several days' supply of water on hand, because you can go without food for 10, 15, 20 days if you have to. Your body will live off of itself. But you can't go without a couple things in a short period of time. You can't go with water for maybe a day or two, and you're going to be in serious trouble. And you can't go without air for only about 3 or 4 minutes. We're not saying that there's going to be a problem with air, but the water situation could fluctuate. If they have to shut off the wells, the water might not run. So you need to have some water stored. And one of the things you can take are bottles like this. Drink your Flavin' Pop, save the bottle, and fill it up with tap water, and have 20 or 30 of these on hand. You know those plastic Pepsi and Coke and Sprite jugs, the big liter ones. You can take those after you empty them out, rinse them out, fill them up with water, put the cap on them, and just store away 20, 30 of those. Little things you can do is like have a little bit of food, have some candles. Candles will actually raise the heat in an enclosed area. If you have a shelter or in your house, if you can close off the other rooms and burn enough candles, you can actually raise the heat in that room enough to survive. But some people, you need to start stockpiling firewood if you have the capability to burn firewood. If you don't, you might start, if you can afford it, look into purchasing a wood stove or some means of burning wood and being able to vent it outside so you don't die from the fumes. Okay, we got another call coming in, but you want to start thinking smart on this Y2K, because we don't want to be caught up in Wisconsin here at 20 below zero with no heat, no electricity, and like they're saying here, you could even get down to where there's possible looting, blackouts, things of that nature. So you want to be prepared. Get yourself some ammunition if you got a gun. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, I was just calling to find out if you think that the credit ratings will be affected by the Y2K bug.
What do you mean by credit ratings?
Credit report, computer.
Well, you know, I've got an article here that there's some very serious things going on with your banks in this country. And hopefully I brought that tonight, but the federal government, working in combination with the IRS, FinCEN, that's here it is, Banking with Big Brother. And let's see, okay, Banking with Big Brother is one of the articles I got. And the other one is Big Brother at the Bank. These are written by the same person, but these, and also I got another news article, but this one here, Banking with Big Brother. U.S. banks must monitor their customers and alert federal officials to suspicious behavior under a government plan that has drawn fire as an Orwellian intrusion into Americans' privacy. Now this one was dated the 20th, this article, and then there's another one that came out. Yeah, they're both, well, actually, this one first came out December, and then there's the follow-up one that I'll read came out February 20th. A set of proposed regulations released Monday requires banks to require every customer's normal and expected transactions and tip off the IRS and federal law enforcement agencies if the behavior is unusual. So unusual behavior could be construed as this. Say the next 20 paychecks you get, you take them to the bank. Say they're $400 paychecks. You hold out $100 out of each paycheck and deposit $300. At the end of those 20 paychecks, you're going to have $2,000. Now, say you walk into your bank at the end of those 20 paychecks and you deposit $2,000, you're going to be tagged as some kind of subversive or a radical or a drug dealer because all of a sudden you're depositing $2,000 in your bank account, even though it's money that you earned over a 20 paycheck period and you just held that money out because you wanted to have some cash on hand. But all of a sudden you don't need that cash, so you deposit that $2,000 back in the bank. You're going to be tagged, and they might even question you at your own bank. So it turns us, now this is a bank official talking, it turns us into surveillance agents for the government, said John Ahrensperger, compliance director for Atlanta-based SunTrust Bank. Ahrensperger stressed that he was not speaking on behalf of his employer. Adopting so-called Know Your Customer programs will stifle drug-related money laundering, the Federal Reserve Board has claimed for years. The proposed regulations will reduce the likelihood that banks will become unwitting participants in illicit activities, the proposed rules say. Government officials argue the rules are not overly intrusive and that privacy critics are overreacting. It's overly alarmist, said Bob Morey, spokesman for the Federal Reserve Board. We're not going to invade anyone's privacy. Yes, you are going to invade somebody's privacy. Anybody that does an unusual banking transaction, that transaction is going to be forwarded to a computer up in Michigan. And then there's certain groups that are going to have access to all that information in Michigan, and they will be able to use that against you as a suspected drug dealer or trying to funnel money or hide money or whatever they could claim because you do have some unusual banking practices. Unless regulators change their minds, banks will be required to comply no later than April 1st of 2000. The Federal Reserve, the Office of Thrift Supervision, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation have published identical requirements. As written, the rules will not apply to credit unions. So, ladies and gentlemen, if the credit unions are off the hook on this, sorry to you other banks in the area, but I think you're going to lose some business because the people aren't going to put up with this. I think within a 2-day period, there was one internet site set up, and they had 52,000 emails, people complaining about this new compliance, and only 18 people said they were for it. And that was just in a matter of hours. So this is something that you, the banks, are going to lose unless you stand up to these regulatory agencies and say, if the credit unions don't have to do it, we're not going to do it. You're going to have to take a stand on that, or you're going to lose business, you're going to lose revenue, and some of you banks are going to go under. When a bank detects any suspicious activity, that's in quotes now, current regulations require that the company complete a 5-page report that includes the customer's name, address, social security number, driver's license number, or passport number, date of birth, and information about the transaction. Now, if that isn't invading my privacy, I don't know what is. The banks are required to telephone law enforcement in situations involving violations requiring immediate attention. So you're going to have some teller that might just be a year out of high school, maybe a little bit of training in how to count money and stuff, and all of a sudden you walk in there, you might have a 3-day growth of beard, you might have got your paycheck on Friday and you're coming in there Monday, you want to make a large deposit, or you might have, like I said, you might have saved a little bit of money out of your past 20 paychecks, all of a sudden you want to make a big deposit. She could look at you and say, you fit the profile of a drug dealer, and actually call law enforcement and tip them off that a suspicious character is making a large deposit. And then on top of that, fill out a 5-page form with all of your information, this would be done without your knowledge, and ship this off to this massive computer that they're setting up in Michigan. The bank sends the information to a computer center in Detroit, Michigan, where it becomes part of the Suspicious Activities Reporting System, a mammoth, searchable database jointly administered by the IRS and FinCEN that went online in April of 1996. Over a dozen agencies, including the FBI, the IRS, the Secret Service, bank regulators, state law enforcement agencies share access to this data. And you say that they're not going to invade our privacy? I guarantee you that probably 50% of the people watching this show will end up in this computer in Detroit if you do any irregular banking or what they consider to be irregular. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
It's strange that you should bring up about Y2K and ammunition for your gun.
Right.
Did anybody read in the paper a few weeks ago about Bill Clinton stating that he would declare martial law if the worst came to worst with Y2K?
Well, of course he would. We're almost on the verge of that now.
Right? Military governing our, taking over our government.
Well, FinCEN is part of that martial law situation,
That,
and they will have access to, I guarantee you they're going to have access to pretty much everyone's bank account in this country.
did anybody ever think about why, since Bill Clinton became president, there's been more of our Constitution being eaten away at little bit by little bit, like this FinCEN or whatever you call it, and this being suspicious of everybody that comes into the bank and makes a deposit or whatever.
I know you'd think the banks would want to protect that privacy of those individuals to get their business. Now, if they get mouthy with people and start writing down information, I guarantee you those banks are going to lose some big-time business, and money is going to flow like rivers of wine over to the credit unions.
No, because you see, everybody will be doing it.
Well, this says the credit unions are exempt.
Well, they will. I'm sure they'll include them when it comes down to push and shove.
But once they herd all the cattle into the credit unions, then they'll probably nail them down.
That's right. As you see, I mean, it all goes back to the Clinton administration coming up with this ridiculous give your social security number to get a hunting and fishing license, and they use our kids as an excuse to pass these ridiculous laws. And I think he wants to become dictator. I really do. And if he declares martial law, who knows? He could probably suspend the Constitution, suspend the election of 2000, and declare himself the great leader of America.
Well, with the executive orders that he has at his disposal, he can declare martial law at any time. Those rules and regulations were put into effect many years ago, or not put into effect, but written down many years ago. In a time of emergency, all of our civil rights can be suspended.
Yeah, but I think he would have to have a big catastrophe, like if Y2K comes off the way a lot of people say. I don't think he could do it like tomorrow. I don't think he could, because I think he would have probably an uprising. But once the people are down a few days without food and they're hungry, and a few days without heat and they're cold, it's going to look pretty good when Clinton and his band of cutthroats and his idiots from Washington, like Butch Reno and the Brady's, and that come riding in and save the day. He'll look pretty good then.
That's why people are going to need battery-operated shortwave radios so they can keep in contact with what's really going on around the country, because you're going to get a massive amount of propaganda in any kind of a meltdown of our society. There'll be a massive amount of propaganda put out there to try and deceive the public. And so you'll need to have those battery-operated radios, walkie-talkies that are battery-operated, CBs and things like that you can run off batteries. And, your car battery will work for quite a while on those kind of things if you can wire up ham radios and stuff. A lot of times when there's disasters in South America, the ham radio people are the only ones that can communicate with the disaster areas to find out what's happening in an area. So it could be a big ado about nothing, but it also could be a major disaster. It just depends on how much of a meltdown we have. And if the grids start going down in one area, that's going to put pressure on the other grids, and they'll go down. And then we'll have a massive electrical failure, which, I was reading where there's one city in Australia that, like, for 30 days their electricity was out, a major city over there. Now, I mean, they had some really major problems over it because of lack of water, and sanitation was, and heat and the lights and everything. I mean, try and live for 30 days in our economy, in our society here in 1999. Try and live for 30 days without electricity and without clean running water coming into your house and without heat, and see what happens, even in the summertime.
That's right, because
just experiment with it.
Right, and
experiment for 2 days shutting off your electricity or water and see how you feel. I've had my pipes freeze up where I live for 3 days. I'm telling you, going out and toting in water so you can take lukewarm baths in your bathtub and stuff, that gets old real quick.
Oh, yeah. People should remember the storm of July 80, when a lot of people were without power for 9 days, how much they were, it showed right on TV how some people went down and right in the face of an NSP representative because the NSP wasn't getting the power hooked up fast enough.
Well,
What's it going to be when you probably are facing 2 or 3 months of that?
well, it could be also the pretext to declare martial law, even if it's just minor.
Well, I mean, like I said, once people have gone hungry for a few days and no heat and no clean water to drink, and Clinton and his band of whoever comes in, he's going to look like the great God. He's going to look like the savior of the world.
All I can say is I pity the fools in the major cities. I pity the fools. Mr. T said that. I pity the fools that stay in the major cities if there's any kind of a meltdown, because you'll have animalistic chaos and you'll be back in the jungle real quick. And that'll be a time when you will need to have self-defense, and things like ammunition will be the thing that'll be hard to get a hold of. They know that they can't remove all the guns from all the people. Clinton's been working on that for 6 years, and he's confiscated a few, but there's still millions of guns out there. But they could dry up the ammunition real quick.
Well, you know, I pity the fools in this country that can't see every day little laws that are being passed to cut into our civil rights. For example, like New York now, without ever going to court, if you're stopped for drunk driving, they automatically take your automobile.
Huh.
And you haven't even been to court but found guilty of anything yet.
Huh. Well, that's amazing, I'll tell you. Well, getting back to this bank thing real quick, Big Brother at the bank, federal, and this is the article, that other one was the first article I found on it was back in December of 98, and then they were speeding forward here to February 20th. This article, federal officials are weighing an alternative to a controversial bank monitoring plan in response to mounting public concerns about privacy and far-reaching surveillance. Over 51,000 irate Americans have condemned the Know Your Customer proposal in an unprecedented storm of email outrage that has regulators ducking for cover and contemplating less controversial approaches. Only 18 people endorsed the plan, and 8,700 opponents weighed in on Friday last week alone. We could write a policy statement that still gets a program in place but takes into account comments, said David Barr, a spokesman for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So they really don't get it. They're going to go ahead and it's still going to be full steam ahead. They're still going to put this in place, even though, like within just a few days' time, 51,000 irate Americans emailed their opposition, and only 8 were in support of it, and or 18, and those 18 were probably IRS agents. The proposed regulations, which will take effect in April unless officials change their minds, requires banks to review every customer's normal and expected transactions and tip off the IRS and federal law enforcement agencies if the behavior is unusual. The government says the rules will stifle drug-related money laundering. Well, first of all of your law enforcement agencies in this country already know who the drug dealers are. They know the flow of the drugs. They know that the heroin is coming in from China and from Laos and Cambodia. They know there's heroin right here in this town. They know there's opium in this town. They know who's selling it. They know there's cocaine in this town. They know who's selling it, who's bringing it in. They know there's marijuana in this town. They know there's LSD in this town. They know who's dealing it at the high schools and the colleges. They know who the drug traffickers are. If they want to shut it down, they can shut it down and that minuscule amount of people, maybe 1% of the population in this country that's actively dealing in drugs, they can shut them down in a week if they want to. But they want to take the 99% of the law-abiding people and lump them in with the drug dealers and stuff and call us all drug dealers and keep records on all of us, which is ridiculous. Go after the 1% and leave the rest of us alone. Critics of the plan say the possible modifications are still distressing. You look at history, and a lot of things that start with general guidance become firmed up into a regulation again. It's the camel's nose under the tent, said Richard Rahn, president of Novacon Financial and the author of The End of Money. I'd look at this as a typical temporary government back-off, but they haven't gotten the fundamental point. The cost to banks will still be there. Bank examiners will give banks a real hard time if they don't have a program that complies. So the federal government is still pushing forward with those regulations. All right, there. Roy, I see that the wrestling champion left the studios, and so we're getting on to our next piece of information here. The INS struggles to cope with criminal aliens. Well, first of all, in the last 6.5 years, Bill Clinton has let hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of aliens into this country. He's flooded this country with aliens from the Middle East, from Asia, from China, from India, from South America, from Canada. They've flooded in here. The floodgates are just wide open. This country now is pushing over 270 million people in it. I don't know if we want to have a country that will closely be at 300 million within just a few years. I don't know if we wanted that many people in this country, but Clinton has opened up the floodgates, and of course it worked to his favor in several congressional districts around the country where he deliberately flooded in and put over 1 million people, made 1 million people citizens just before the November 96 elections. Clinton flooded the country with a lot of people, or made people voting citizens just for those elections. That affected the races in several areas of the country, especially congressional races back in 96. And again in 98, it affected congressional races big time. Certain areas with large Hispanic populations of people that just came into the country. And so now the INS is struggling to cope with these criminal aliens that Clinton has helped flood into this country. Immigration agents rooted out and deported 55,000 thieves, robbers, rapists, murderers, drug dealers, and arsonists last year. A record number of foreign felons on the U.S. unwanted list. But if history is any guide, many of those criminal aliens will join the roughly 250,000 illegals who sneak back in each year into the United States to mix with the estimated 5 million illegal aliens already in this country. 5 million of them. And if they say there's 5 million, there's actually 10 million. Recently, these criminals have been turning up in pastoral, mid-American towns as well as big cities, boasting drugs and importing urban scruffiness. The trend worries everyone, legal immigrants, U.S. citizens, and pro- and anti-immigrant advocates alike. It's also just one of many problems that scholars and policymakers say results from having a poorly constructed Immigration and Naturalization Service and a chaotic immigration policy. All right, we're going to take a call and we'll go into that a little more detail. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Chuck, how you doing?
All right.
Hey, I'm a little worried. I just tuned in because I just got home, but where's Fred this evening?
Fred is home recuperating from a cold and a partial flu. He got himself looked like he had a little bit of pink eye on Saturday. And he's a little bit under the weather there, so he's recuperating, and hopefully he'll be back on the next show.
Hey, wish him my best, would you?
All right.
So what's been going on tonight?
Well, not much. We had a surprise visit from Johnny the Man Ringo all the way from Beverly Hills, California, out there in Hollywood wrestling country. He flew back just to come on the show to challenge the Common Man to a steel cage death match right here in Eau Claire. And of course, Johnny the Man Ringo has held the Intercontinental Pac-11 World Wrestling Championship belt for over 3 years now. He won it and then disappeared. And I'll tell you, it was a struggle for him to win it. I tell you, that one wrestling match against that 350-pound woman, I'll tell you, if she wasn't 6'4", she was 6'5", and there was a lot of muscle there. One time she picked him up and twirled him around and threw him 28 feet right over the top ropes into the crowd there, knocked one guy totally out. Johnny staggered back to his feet, shook his head, went back in there and pinned her in 2 minutes. It's one of the longest matches in the history of wrestling. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
How's it going this evening, Chuck?
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about, I'm originally from Minnesota, and I was wondering what your opinion is on Ventura, because he's been getting a lot of press lately because of the governor's meeting in Washington. I turned on C-SPAN, and all I see is Ventura, 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 so.
Okay, well, Johnny the Man Ringo trained with Jesse the Body Ventura and Vern Gagne and all those people in the wrestling school over there in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and he wrestled in the young days. And unfortunately, Johnny came in after Fred had retired, and Fred had that one hold called the hook. He put many people to sleep with the old hook hold, and he taught many of the famous people wrestling holds over the years. And Johnny picked up a few. Johnny went over to Fred's house there after Fred had retired, and he got some of Fred's old wrestling costumes, and Fred told him a few of the secret holds, and Johnny is going to be revealing one of those secret holds in that death match with the Common Man. And so we'll see what happens there with that. But getting back here real quick to the We're going to take one more call, and then we got to get back to this immigration issue. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Hello. And sometimes we only got 12 lines coming in here, and sometimes they get crossed, and line 11 will cancel out line 12, and we have that beautiful bevy of women out there that are answering the phones, and sometimes they'll hit the wrong button, and we lose the call. So if you got canceled out there, call back, and we'll take your call again. All right, I think we have the call now. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Well, unfortunately, we have some technical difficulties. All right, so getting back to this. Consider what happened in Omak, in Alcagana County, Washington, an apple growing area. It's a quiet town of 4,000 souls, 1,500 miles and 27 hours drive from the Mexican border. There on a late wintry Wednesday, a woman's ex-boyfriend was pounding on her door trying to get into her Stampede motel room. She called the police. 2 officers, a fifth of the force responded. They encountered a gunman on the parking lot. He whipped out 2 pistols, backed into a nearby alley, and suddenly fired. Officer Mike Marshall, 43, father of 2, dropped a fatal round in his head. Officer Don Eddy went down with a bullet in the leg, but fired back, wounding the gunman before managing to shackle and arrest him. The arrested man is Juan Gonzalez, a 41-year-old Mexican who had been shipped back to Mexico twice. The last time was on October 18, 1997, when he finished serving time on a drug conviction. He awaits trial on murder charges. So he was just one of the 55,000 illegal immigrants that were rounded up last year. But that's with over 5 million running around the country, and kind of workers or employers looking the other way because they need bodies to fill some of these positions in this country. As long as the employers are willing to hire them and not check out their records and to make sure they have the green cards or whatever, we're going to continue to have that problem. So it's going to be tough to weed out those 5 million people. All right, well, I can't read that. All right, I don't know if we have another call coming in there or not. Yes, all right. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
I was just calling to find out if that was Jesse Ventura that just called.
You know, that could have been Jesse, the Bobby Ventura, calling in there a minute ago because, like I say, Jesse was out there in California a while, and I think earlier in Johnny, the man Ringo's career, I think Jesse showed him a few holes there, and they might have had some appearances together there before Jesse retired. Okay, you're on the air there now.
Yeah, Chuck.
All right.
Yeah, I just called about Jesse Ventura. No, this is not him. This is just a fan of Ventura. I voted for him. I think, you know, he's a good governor. He's an honest guy. He doesn't tell the people what they want to hear. He tells them exactly what they need to hear. You know? So I just wanted to, let everyone know that I support him, and no, this isn't Ventura. He's busy in Washington doing his thing, so.
All right, well, thank you. There was Jesse's spokesman there. Okay, real briefly, the Eau Claire County Republican Party had their annual caucus, and this year was a year to vote in new members, and Don Motzing is the new chairman of the local party, and they have over 400 strong paying members, and I'm sure there'll be more members that will be joining before the end of the year. Their goal is to go after Ron Kine, to defeat him, and to work on putting a Republican president in place. Well, it looks like the old clock on the wall says it's that time again, so I want to thank you all for tuning in. Fred will be back with us next time. I've been your host, Chuck Lee. My guest tonight was Johnny the Man Ringo. The director is Roy Rogers Hoff Sr. Adios, amigos and amiguettes. We'll see you right here again next time on the Old Cow Report. Goodbye.